And Dr. McKnight is here. Good morning. Good to see you, as always.
Good morning. It's nice to be here.
Did you finish the Cheez-Its from last week?
No, I'm trying to be careful.
Oh, okay, good. Well, last week we talked about the food labeling. You bought the box just so you'd have a reference point. And we thought we would continue that because there's so many things to look at when you go to the store and you're looking at products and think, well, this looks good. This says it is, whatever, that it must be good. It has reduced fat. It has less sugar than it used to. And it's confusing.
It is confusing. You're right. I think a lot of times the manufacturers are responding to public pressure, the things that the consumer wants to know. And for a long time, we thought that high-fat diets were bad for us, that they cause heart disease and make us get fat. And that's actually not true. There are some fats that we should avoid, but because of that pressure, the manufacturers are starting to put on a lot of their foods reduced fat. And because they think if we see reduced fat on the label, that would mean it's something healthy for us. Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is most of the fats used in packaged foods are either using hydrogenated fats or trans fats. And those fats are abnormal fatty structures that aren't found anywhere in nature. And when they get incorporated into our cell membranes, which is one of the places they go, they alter the communication of what goes into the cell and how the cell communicates. So they're really bad for us. But the definition of a reduced fat on any label is 25% less fat calories than the original version. Okay. So if you see reduced fat, it means it's 25% less of what the original version of that was, like a Triscuit. You can have reduced fat Triscuit, and that's what it means, is 25% less fat. And at least it has to meet that minimum requirement. Actually, in the Triscuit example, it's 40% if you do the math. Okay. So reduced fat means there's 25% or less fat calories. So that's, again, that's from consumer pressure. But the reason we hydrogenate our foods is so it prolongs the shelf life. Mm-hmm. And again, we're taking a normal fat, like a vegetable oil, like maybe safflower oil, and we're changing the chemistry of that molecule into something that doesn't go rancid. It prolongs the shelf life, but that structure of that fatty acid is not found anywhere in nature, and that doesn't belong inside us.
We don't have it in us to begin with.
We don't have it. In fact, it's not in any plant. It's not in any animal. It's not in any microbe anywhere on the planet. The one place you'll see hydrogenated or trans fats, that is in the stomachs of ruminating animals. It's the only place, just in that one stomach, or whatever, how many stomachs they have. But that's it. So that should be a clue to us. So we need to be careful of it. Yes. So that's the first thing. I mean, we should be eating healthy fats. We should be eating fats like butter, avocados, canola oil, coconut oil, and those fats. Those are the healthy fats. The vegetable oil fats really are what we usually use in our cooking: corn oil, safflower oil, and all the peanut oil, all these others. These are really not the best for us because they're very high in omega-6 fatty acids. And nature's balance in our cells say that we need for every 4 omega-6s, we need 1 omega-3 fatty acid. Well, so omega-6s are good in a way, but the problem is most of us, the way we eat packaged foods, fast foods, that ratio flips from 4-to-1 to 20-to-1. So we're getting way, way too many omega-6 fatty acids. Those are inflammatory for us. So we need to try to stay away from those.
Is olive oil in that category?
Olive oil is not. Olive oil is high in omega-3 fatty acids. That's why it's so good for us. Yes.
All right.
So that's the reduced fat definition on a label. Then we have another description on the label which says carb smart, and that confuses people. Like, I didn't know carbs were smart, number one. I thought they were bad in a way, and they are kind of bad because most of us eat too many carbs, and carbs make us not only make fat, but they make us more hungry. So what people struggle with understanding what a carbohydrate is, it's not just sugar, it's not just starches. Carbohydrates are also fiber. And fiber, many of the fibers are non-digestible. It goes right through us. We don't absorb it. And then we have these sweeteners called sugar alcohols, like sorbitol and xylitol. Those are used in, say, sugarless gum. And so the structure of a sugar alcohol is close to a sugar, and when it touches our tongue, it tastes sweet to us. So it satisfies that craving. And those provide no calories for us. They just sweeten the food up. So when you're talking about Carb Smart, first of all, the FDA doesn't define this anywhere. So when we're talking about Carb Smart, you have to. What you do is you look at a food label and you see the total carbs on the side of the label, and then you subtract any carbohydrates that don't add calories, such as sugar, alcohols, and fiber. And if you do that, that should lead to what the number is for the net carbs, and that's the Carb Smart. So essentially, Carb Smart carbohydrates provide calories only. So for an example, Breyer's ice cream says Carb Smart on it, 4 grams of carbs per serving. Okay, so that should be good. So it is less sugar, and if you do the math, it's the total carbohydrates minus the fiber. Actually, there's fiber in ice cream, and minus the sugar alcohols. And the sugar alcohols is what makes it sweet, but it doesn't provide calories. So that's the whole point of it. Kind of interesting in ice cream. Why would you add fiber in ice cream? That doesn't make sense. Well, the fibers like carrageenan and I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. They don't. What they do is they absorb water, and they absorb water out of the ice cream, so it doesn't crystallize. So when you eat smooth ice cream, basically the water molecules are bound up by these fibers that are non-digestible, and they go right through.
And not crunchy like frost.
Right, just like the homemade ice cream that you would make that's kind of has those ice crystals. So that's what makes it smooth. So that's why they put these non-digestible fibers in ice cream. But the idea of Carb Smart, again, is most of us are trying to be Carb Smart, and we want to eat those foods with less sugar. But we still want to retain the taste, so they add these sugar alcohols. And there's really nothing wrong with that.
And you can load up on carbs if you're an athlete, because you're going to burn them.
Yes, athletes, that's a little different topic, but their metabolism is so much higher than someone who's not an athlete. They can burn right through them, and they do need a lot of carbs. Absolutely. But most of us, if we're trying to lose weight, we need to be targeting our carb intake to anywhere from 25 to 75 grams of carbs a day. So we do want to be smart about our carb intake. And unfortunately, many of us just have a hard time getting rid of the breads and the potatoes and the rice and the starches and the sugars and the sweets. And that's the big challenge, because those foods really ramp up our appetite. There's a hormone called ghrelin in our brain. Ghrelin makes the stomach growl. And when you eat a lot of those carbs, you're going to be starving the next day. And the example I give, I told this to somebody yesterday, is you think about Thanksgiving, most of us eat twice or 3 times the calories that we should have, on Thanksgiving, right? And we're having rolls and mashed potatoes and apple pie and then a piece of pumpkin pie, maybe a little bit of ice cream, and we're getting all these carbs. And we go to bed thinking, I'm not going to eat for 2 or 3 days. I overdid it. The next morning we wake up and we're starving. We're thinking, well, how can I be hungry? Well, it's all those carbs. And those carbs turn on ghrelin, this hormone in your brain that says, feed me, feed me. And we have to learn to suppress that. But that's a challenge for us. So
it is. So how can you take your brain to the supermarket? Do you look at these labels and have to have a little bit of leeriness, like, well, I see what it's trying to tell me, but there might be a side effect?
Well, I can tell you a really simple way. First of all, I would look at the food labels and start to look what's in it. And if you're trying to lose weight, you want to keep track of the carbs. They're the total carbs, or the net carbs, I should say. But the simplest clue is spend most of your time and most of what goes in your shopping cart should come from the produce aisle, right?
I knew that was coming.
It makes it pretty simple, because all those packaged foods they tend to be loaded with sodium because it's a preservative and it's a flavor enhancer. They tend to be loaded with sugars, and primarily high fructose corn syrup, which is much cheaper than cane sugar. But it's much worse for insulin and weight gain and appetite, which is great for the manufacturers because we want more of those foods. It's usually high in trans or hydrogenated fats because it's preservatives. it prolongs the shelf life. And then it usually is high in enriched flours, which enriched sounds good because it'll tell me parenthetically fortified with vitamins and minerals. Well, that's because of the Congress's act to add those back, right?
Because they took them out already.
They took them out originally in the milling process, and they're only adding four or five back out of all the other ones that are stripped out. So enriched means depleted. So that's what you'll see on almost every package that you look at. So, as we talked about, I think last week, where do you grow macaroni in the garden or in the fields? So where does it come from? Where does pizza? How do you harvest pizza?
There was a case of spaghetti trees in Sweden, but it was an April Fool's joke.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, unfortunately, that doesn't grow on trees either. So, we just need to be careful. And it's not that you can't have packaged foods, but you have to look at the cumulative effect of all the processed packaged foods because they really have detrimental effects on our health, our cholesterol, and it's cumulative over time.
For sure. Well, thank you, and continue eating healthy and advising us. We appreciate that.
I'll do my best. Thank you.
Dr. Tim McKnight this morning here as we talk with the doc, brought to you by Mako's Pharmacy.